Hello there, and welcome to Security Nuggets Podcast, your one-stop channel for security risk management insights and fresh perspectives that aims to help you increase your awareness on matters safety and security. And I'm your host, Ashley, your security risk consultant, and I'm always happy to see you here. Now, without wasting any time, let's delve into our topic of today, which is travel, security, and safety. And I'm excited about this topic because it's a topic a lot of us can relate to because we travel a lot. Whether you're traveling abroad or traveling locally, it's a topic that you can relate with, all right? Now, we want to see how we can utilize situational awareness to increase on our safety and security when we are out there traveling, all right? Now, remember, situational awareness is the ability to perceive, understand, and effectively respond to one situation. And in traveling, it becomes a very essential skill to have because it's very important for you to increase on your safety and security. Because whether you're traveling for business or leisure, understanding and anticipating potential threats that you might be facing is crucial. Now, in this episode, we're going to be looking at 5 principles of situational awareness in travel security and safety. Now, before we get to those 5 principles, I want us to unpack on potential inhibitors of situational awareness. What are the circumstances that impact on how some of us behave and react when we are traveling? Now, some of those inhibitors are one, naivety. Some people, unfortunately, can be quite naive when they're traveling because, well, they think that nothing bad can go wrong. There is no bad in the world, right? So they are oblivious of the fact that while they're traveling, something bad could happen to them, and that could actually put their security and safety in jeopardy. So naivety is one inhibitor. The other inhibitor is complacency. Some people are quite complacent. They're quite complacent, especially if they've been used to the routine of traveling. They travel so much, and during their course of traveling, there has been nothing wrong. They've not encountered any safety or security issues, so they get very complacent. What you'd call, they get very comfortable in their box, okay? So some people can be quite complacent, all right? And because of that complacency and because they are so routine oriented, they might actually put their safety and security in jeopardy. So complacency becomes another inhibitor in situational awareness. The other one is distraction. Some people get very distracted when they're traveling. They don't pay attention when they're supposed to be paying attention, all right? They're distracted by gadgets. We're talking of the phones, the laptops, the tablets, the iPads, like instead of paying attention when they're supposed to be paying attention, they're distracted by their gadgets, okay? Others have the earphones, they're listening to music or listening to podcasts or listening to something else, and it distracts them from paying attention, all right? Which exposes them. It makes them vulnerable to unsafe and insecure scenarios, all right? So that is another inhibitor, distraction. The other inhibitor that impacts on how some people behave and react towards situation is vigilance. Okay, some people are vigilant and alert, all right? They pay attention, okay? They pay attention, all right? Now, most of them are probably people who have some situational awareness skill training, or they have some security background or military background, because situational awareness is like a mandatory skill for you to have when you're in that kind of profession. So they tend to be very quite alert, or maybe someone who has gone through that experience of they were once in a situation where they were insecure or they were unsafe, and out of that experience, they had to up their game. They had to get the relevant situational awareness training, and they had to just make sure that when they're traveling, they're always alert, they're looking out for those abnormal situations. So vigilance is another inhibitor of situational awareness. So you need to ask yourself, where are you? Which inhibitor impacts you when you're traveling? Are you the naive person? Are you the complacent person? Are you the distracted person or are you the alert person who is vigilant when you travel? It's very important for you to check yourself and know where to place yourself, because now you can know what to do when you've done that, okay? And the 5 principles that we're going to be unpacking for the 5 principles for situational awareness in travel security and safety, they're going to be very important, okay? Because they are going to help you up your game, all right? They're going to help you whether you're traveling abroad or locally. When you're traveling to an unfamiliar territory or environment, they're going to help you increase on your awareness. Now, one of the principles is that the security and safety precaution measures that you're taking, they need to match the potential threat of your area of destination, okay? Now, different areas of visiting or traveling, your different destinations have their unique security and safety considerations, okay? They are not the same everywhere, okay? So you need to establish, where am I traveling to? What's the destination? And what are its unique security and safety considerations, okay? Once you've established those security and safety considerations, then you need to deploy safety and security precautions that match those threats, all right? It's very important for you to have that balance, because you don't want to be visiting a quite risky destination or quite risky environment or country or place, and then you realize that the threats were so high and you traveled and prepared. You are really exposing yourself here, right? So it's very important for us to balance those two. Now, remember, there is no expectation that you can get to guarantee your safety and security 100%. All right. It can never be 100%. There is zero guarantee. Okay. That expectation should be there. You can be expected to safeguard yourself 100%. All right. But you can use a rational approach that entails that you're being aware of the potential risks of where you're traveling. All right. You've done your analysis. You've done your evaluation. You've started by identifying the potential risk and proceeded to analyze them, to evaluate them, all right? And you have gone ahead to make sure that you've deployed precautions, all right, that are going to reduce that exposure of risk to as low as reasonable practical, okay? So that is the rational approach that you need to deploy and you need to adapt, all right? Now, for instance, you could be traveling to a destination that is unstable or is hostile, okay? Usually unstable and hostile destination come with potential threats associated to things like theft, mugging, kidnapping case, in worst case scenario, okay? Extortion, all right? So if you're traveling to this kind of destination, then you need to make sure that you have acquired the situational awareness training, and you've also acquired a scenario-based training, okay? If you are anticipating a potential threat of kidnapping, you need to get a kidnapping-based training. Okay, so get that training, all right, and prepare yourself, okay, for the worst case scenario should it happen. Most of the time it doesn't happen, but the goal here is to prepare ahead so that we can be able to effectively respond to that sort of scenario if it happened, okay? For instance, you could be traveling, but you are a high-value asset, okay? You are a person of high value. Maybe you are a celebrity, maybe you are a sports athlete, maybe you are a politician, or maybe you're someone who is known to be very wealthy. That makes you a target, okay? So you could be a high value person. So you need to make sure that you're acquiring a close executive protection service. You are having those executive protection services. You have people to guard you. You have people to look out for you and protect you. And you have people to do pre-advanced risk analysis of where you're traveling so that they can deploy different mitigations in place to make sure that you are not exposing yourself to a scenario whereby you're being kidnapped and your family is being extorted for money. They're being paid to pay ransom. And if they don't pay it, something bad will happen to you because the adversary has done their homework and they've established that you are a wealthy person with a wealthy background. So they're asking for a ransom. And then that is a scenario that you want to avoid. Okay. So that is what I mean. Okay. The safety and security precautions that you are deploying must match your potential threats depending on where you travel. For instance, when it comes to things like health and hazard scenarios or circumstances, okay, you need to make sure that you are acquiring that medical consultation in advance, all right? You need to understand where I'm traveling, what are the diseases that are common there because they may not be common in your residence area of residence, okay? And you need to get some vaccinations in advance, or you need to pack some medication in advance, all right? And whenever you're doing this, you also need to make sure that it is in line with that destination compliance, travel restrictions and compliance, that you have the right inoculations in place as far as medical requirements and needs are concerned. The second principle number 2, is that you need to do your research on your destination. Research your destination, do your due diligence, okay? Research the area you're traveling to, okay? How is the geopolitics? Is it unstable? Is it stable? Is it peaceful? Is there potential for unrest? Get to familiarize yourself with the security and the peace status within that area, okay? You also need to do your due diligence and do your research on your accommodation, okay? Uh, if it's a hotel, check out the reviews, okay? What are the safety and security concerns that other people who have frequented that destination have had? As well as reading the travel advisories, okay? We have generic travel advisories on safety and security, depending on where you're going. We have that sort of information. When I say generic, I mean, this is information you can get even on the internet. You can go to Google and get it from the open source, okay? And you can be able to type in your destination and you can get to research on the security concerns, safety concerns generically, all right? You can also get your travel advisory that it is country based. If you're traveling abroad, the country that you're traveling to, what is the travel advisory for that specific country, okay? So familiarize yourself with the travel advisories. What is being said about that country's security and safety? And what are the travelers advised to do, or what are they encouraged to do, right? The other important strategy you can adopt when you're doing your research, when you're doing your research on your destination, is if you know someone who has been in that environment or area you're traveling to before, or country, if you have someone you know and they've been there, you can always rely on their intelligence, okay? They're the best people who can give you that first-hand intel. They've been there, they've experienced the destination, they've probably gone through some issues or not, they will tell you this, they will share this intelligence with you. So leverage on that. If you have people who have been to that kind of destination, let them share as much information with you as possible so that you can use that intel to your advantage, because getting information and preparing ahead very much helps you in your decision making, all right? You want to prepare effectively for your travel, all right? The third principle is we need to deploy contingencies. Deploy contingencies, okay? The reason why we deploy contingencies and the reason why we should have a backup plan when we're traveling is because you should be able to answer the question of what should happen if something goes wrong. What should happen if there's a crisis? What should happen next? Because the last thing you want to do is to be stranded in an unfamiliar territory, okay? For instance, under contingencies, you need to make sure that where you're traveling, the destination of travel, you've done your due diligence to establish which are the local hospitals and health facilities. Should you be sick, is there a reliable hospital that you can be taken to or you can go to seek medical attention, okay? You need to establish that and also get contacts of this health facility. Find out, is there like security state agency, like is there a police station near your destination? If there is, establish its location and also get the emergency contacts for that, okay? If where you're traveling, is there like an embassy that represents your origin state, like your area of residency? In case of an emergency and you need reinforcement, you need to get assistance from your embassy, your state embassy, then you can always call a number, an emergency number, and get that assistance, all right? Again, when it comes to accommodation, it's always nice, as much as you have pinned down on your hotel of accommodation, your destination accommodation, there's always one preferred, the one that we like, the favorable one. Well, you've already pinned out on that and you've done your homework to establish that it checks out safety-wise and security-wise. You need to have another accommodation as a backup, okay? Because this one might fall. Like you might go and you're checking in and they tell you, oh, we are sorry, we are full. There was a miscommunication. There was a communication breakdown. We forgot to let you know that we are full and all that. Or you might even check in and realize, the hotel is not up to your standards or expectations and you want to move out, check out and go to another place. But if you had already done your due diligence and you had come up with another hotel as a backup, one or two hotels accommodation as backups, you can always check into your backup, because the last thing you want to do is to get stranded. If you're lucky enough to be traveling to a destination where you know someone who lives there, you have a local contact there, that is a very good thing for you to take advantage of, okay? Because that can be another emergency contact. The fact that you know someone who stays in your destination location, it means that in case of an emergency, you can always call this local person to come and help you or to link up with you or help you get out of a bad situation, because they are local there. They are more familiar with that environment. They probably have more contacts to get you more help should you require it, depending on the nature of crisis that you have gotten, you may get yourself into, all right? So leverage on that. If you have a local contact, keep that local contact as your emergency contact, okay? Now, the other contingency is if you're traveling abroad, make sure that your trusted family or loved ones back home, they have your emergency contacts. That's the other contingency, all right? They have the number of your local friend or local acquaintance where you're traveling. They have an emergency contact of the hotel you're accommodating in, all right? They have an emergency contact of the embassy if you've acquired an emergency contact from the embassy. The reason why this is important is that something can happen to you and you are not accessible. Nobody can reach you via phone or email. So when that happens, they can be able to call any of the emergency contacts and they can be able to be advised accordingly, okay? So communication is maintained. And as well as the people you are sharing, the people back home, your trusted loved ones back home you're sharing emergency contacts with, of where you're traveling, your destination of travel, also share your travel plans, all right? When you get to your destination of travel, are you planning to travel around that area? What are the things you're planning to do? You know, share your plans and maybe itinerary, because these are people you love and you trust, so they can be able to keep tabs on you. And should there be an emergency, then they can be able to follow up and they can be able to get you that help and assistance if need be as quick as possible, right? Now, the other principle, which is also equally very important, principle number 4 is maintain caution and vigilance. Okay. What this means is that you're using your best judgment to avoid unsafe and insecure situations. Okay. Now, for instance, one of the things that you can do is to avoid attention. Be discreet. Okay. When we talk of avoiding attention, some people when they're traveling, they attract a lot of attention towards themselves. Okay. And let's start from the basics, from how they dress. If you're traveling and you're wearing these designer outfits and designer clothes, not that there's anything wrong with designer outfits, but depends on where you're traveling. You're traveling to a place and you're wearing designer outfits and designer jewels and very expensive watches. You are attracting attention. You're attracting attention because people see these things and what they tell themselves is, oh, this is someone who has money. You are basically a walking target, okay? So don't attract too much attention towards yourself, all right? And also be discreet, okay? You can't be traveling and you're probably in a plane or in a train or in a bus or whatever mode of transport you're using, and you're sharing your travel plans with your next passenger, your neighboring passenger. You're basically sharing your itinerary, where you're going, what you're planning to do, the hotel you're staying, that's quite unwise, all right? So be discreet with your travel plans and arrangement because you never know who you're talking to, all right? Yeah, you never know who you're talking to, and you don't want to expose yourself and put yourself in that position where you've given so much information about yourself and you've given it to the wrong person. And the next thing you know is you're a target. You're a target of being mugged. You're a target of being of theft. You're a target of being kidnapped. You're a target of being extorted. I mean, you're a target of so many things. Okay, so be discreet. All right. The other thing you can do is be very careful with your transportation, especially if you have to outsource like the cab services. Okay, a lot of people traveling have been victims of rogue cabs. When I say a rogue cab, I mean this is a cab whereby the driver has more intentions. So they will either steal from you, they will either put you in a position whereby you're vulnerable to being kidnapped, or you're even vulnerable to being raped. Okay. So it's very and many other things. Okay, so it's very important for us to make sure that the transportation that we are using when we are traveling, uh we've taken some time, okay, to do our research to establish that the transportation that we are using is safe and secure. If you're going to use a car, because let's be honest, when we are traveling in far destinations, obviously, because you're not going to have your car with you, you're going to outsource cab service, okay? Or maybe if you're lucky, you'll do a car rent or you rent a car yourself. But in most cases, people rely on taxis, even to pick them from the airport to the hotel destination, all right? So if you're gonna use a cab, at least use a credible cab service. Like a lot of these cab services are app-based, okay? You'll find a cab that is app-based. Like for instance, you can use the likes of Uber. That is an international cab company, all right? So you can just make a booking via an app on your phone, and make a booking for an app via Uber, so that when that cab comes, at least you know that this is a cab and their credentials and details are in there. Uber platform, okay? So that in case of anything, you can always have that trail. You can always know how to make a complaint and make a follow-up and get feedback. You know where to even make that complaint to, all right? Plus, when it is app-based, the driver is cautious. They don't want to do anything that's malicious or harmful, or that might put you in that unsafe or insecure scenario, because they don't want to expose themselves to the app company, the cab app company, right? So they'll be careful. So use those app-based cabs or taxis if you have to outsource cab service, okay? Don't use strange cabs, okay? Now, sometimes you can even use a cab and make a booking in advance before you land at the airport. But when you get to the airport, you're finding that there's a cab waiting for you and a driver, and they have your details and the names. You know, they've probably written your names and details on that cardboard, and they have it up there. So you're leaving the airport and you're saying, oh, that is my guy, all right? But maybe that information was hacked, and they were able to maybe even upload that cab company's logo online and be able to use that, all right? So what I'm saying is, let's be cautious, okay? When you're traveling, let's be cautious, okay? In this scenario, you can avoid using a false cab by making sure that you have the cab driver's details, okay? As much as they have your information, you want to get out of the airport, and before you board that cab, you want to make sure that I have the driver's name, and if possible, I have a passport picture of how he looks, okay? That way, you are 100% sure that I'm getting into the right cab and I'm getting in touch with the right driver, all right? So that is what I mean when it comes to being cautious and being careful, all right? Now, sometimes there are other contributing factors that make people let their guard down when they're traveling. They make people become less vigilant and less cautious. Now, for instance, there is this thing that it's quite common. I don't know why. Some people, when they are traveling abroad in different places, even locally, if you're going to a different town and it's a town you're not familiar with, there's always the temptation to be out, to be over the top, you know? You will go to this new place, it's unfamiliar, you will probably drink more than you do when you're back in your residency, right? So you will drink as much as you can, more than you do. Obviously, when you drink too much and you're drunk, obviously your alert levels go down, okay? Again, it's highly likely that you'll probably get into scuffles. I mean, you're in an unfamiliar environment, okay? Who knows who you're talking to? There might be even language barrier. You're not being able to communicate with the locals properly, okay? And you want to avoid that kind of situation. So another contributing factor is the fact that people tend to drink too much alcohol when they are in unfamiliar environments, okay? So you travel to your destination, and obviously you want to have a good time, but you get it, you're over the top with that, okay? You engage too much, indulge too much with alcohol, you get so drunk, you get into scuffles, you're fighting with locals. The next thing, you've been arrested, you're in this police station, you don't know what to do, you don't know anybody there. You know, like, why get yourself involved in those kind of scenarios? Okay, you're meeting strangers in hotels, you know. You've met a date, a strange person you've never seen before, you've taken them to the hotel. I mean, you're doing things that are quite really insecure, all right? Because you got too high, you got too drunk, you took too much alcohol. So those are the contributing factors that also tend to lower the alertness levels of some people when they're traveling. So my point is, be more cautious, be more vigilant, get your guard up. Also, secure your personal belongings. Secure your personal belongings, secure your personal luggage. It's very important. When you're on transit, make sure that you're aware of where your personal belongings are at all times. Even when you get into the hotel and you're checked in, your accommodation, make sure that you know where your personal luggage is. Some hotel accommodations have those small hotel safes, okay? Use that, utilize that, okay? Make sure that your travel documents and any money is stored well there. And When you check in, make sure that at all times you're handling your key or your room keys carefully. You're not leaving them exposed for someone else to find and access your room and steal from you, okay? Just be cautious. Just be vigilant. It's very important, okay? Additionally, a lot of what maybe gets stolen when people are traveling is gadgets and devices. A lot of people lose phones, a lot of people lose laptops, and tablets and all that, So you may want to make sure that you have installed Find My Device application on all your gadgets. And now make sure that at all times your devices and gadgets are charged, they have power. That way, should somebody steal them, then you can quickly be able to retrieve them. You can be able to track them and you can be able to retrieve them, okay? So those are just some of the tips that I'm sharing that you may want to utilize and adopt moving forward when you're planning for your travel so that you can make sure that you're being safe and secure. Final and fifth principle that we are discussing is blend in with the locals, okay? If you can be able to blend in with the locals, do that. What I mean here as well is try and understand the cultural norms of the area of your destination, okay? Is there a certain culture that your locals adopt, okay? Because you don't want to clash with the culture of the locals, depending on where you're traveling, all right? I know some countries and some locations, travel destinations can be quite unique in terms of the culture. Some of it is religion affiliated, okay? So you don't want to go conflicting with the locals and the people within the area where you're traveling to, okay? Also, when it comes to blending in with the locals, I also mean getting to understand the laws. How is the legal framework? Okay, because maybe where you're coming from, your area of residence, there's a law that's different from the law that's where you're traveling. Okay, so you might want to make sure that you are not doing something that it is against your destination law, okay? Now, if you're an organization that sees a lot of your employees traveling for business, it's quite common, especially with the organization that have foreign interests, organization that have branches abroad. It's very common for them to have staff and personnel that are traveling a lot for business. So if you are that organization, then you need to have what we call a business travel security management program, and you are incorporating most of the principles that we have discussed, if not all, in that program, so that you can make sure that your employees are very familiar with the do's and don'ts, security-wise and safety-wise, and they can be able to deploy them and increase their security and safety when they're traveling and when they're out there, okay? Because again, as far as your employees are concerned, it falls under your organization's duty of care. As long as they are traveling for business, then they are still under your organization's responsibility. So your organization has that moral obligation to look out for its employees when they're traveling out there, all right? You don't want to risk it as an organization. You don't want to not train your employees on best travel security safety practices, and they get out there and they get into some sort of scenario where their safety or security was put at jeopardy, because that would constitute negligence on your organization's part. So it's important for you to do this, okay? And remember, in our goal of increasing security risk awareness culture within organizations, your employees also need to know how to handle themselves when they're traveling for leisure purposes, okay? When your employees are not working and they're out there traveling for their vacations or traveling for whatever reasons on their personal note, they need to be aware, oh, what are the do's and don'ts of us when we're traveling. What is it that we need to do and what is it that we don't do so that we can increase our safety and security when we are traveling? Okay, so it still falls under an organization's responsibility. So travel security and safety is very important, especially in the modern era where there's a lot of traveling, there's a lot of moving around for business and leisure. Travel security and safety is an aspect that we cannot ignore. We definitely need to prioritize on it. We definitely need to pay more attention to it. And I hope that by what we have discussed in this episode, you've managed to get important insights for you to deploy as an organization, even on a personal level as an employee. You can be able to plan ahead effectively, and you can be able to perceive some of the potential threats and risks where you're traveling, and you can be able to, should something go wrong, you can be able to effectively respond to those scenarios. In summary, as I wind up, remember that situational awareness is not a skill that we can develop overnight. No. However, with time, exposure, and experience, we are able to enhance our situational awareness skill, okay? So that we can be able to spot the presence of abnormal and the absence of normal. So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't done that already. I'd appreciate it. And until our next episode, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye for now.